Great, well, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Digital Marketing in the Language Travel Sector. My name is Mike Henniger. I'm the moderator for today's session, and we have a really great panel. I think really this session topic is very timely, I think, for many of us who have been dealing with all of these changes that the pandemic brought to us and how either as an agency or as a school we're connecting and trying to do our job. So I know the topic of the session, that the title says Digital Marketing in the Language Travel Sector, but I think we're going to go a little bit wider than that today in our topic, and we're going to speak a little bit more about recruitment in general and how we're doing that in the new digital age. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves here. First, a little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Mike Henniger, and I've been in international education and recruitment specifically my entire career. I've worked in the vocational sector, private sector, and also public post-secondary here in Canada where I'm based. I'm based in Vancouver, BC. So I'll be using those hats that I've had in my different positions to answer the questions and also pose questions to our panel. And speaking of our panel, we have a really distinguished guest here, 3 people with a wide range of backgrounds and experience. I'll ask them to introduce themselves first to get us started. Maybe Robin, you can kick us off.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mike. My name is Robin Adams. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I'm currently the president of Center of English Studies North America, and also the president of the International Association of Language Centers. I'm very excited to be here today.
Marcela, please.
Oh, hi. Well, I'm Marcela. I'm an agent in Brazil. I work for IE Intercambio. I've been in the industry for about 20-something years. I started as a counselor, and I'm responsible for partnerships at IE. So I'm very happy to be joining you today in this challenging year to everyone.
Well, Marcela, it's funny. I think it's unique to see you on this webinar. You were one of the first agents that I ever worked with, and it's got to be probably, 17, 18 years ago. You were one of the first. So yeah, we've been a while together. Last but not least, Jimmy.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Bataglia, and I guess I'm the newbie here. I've only been for about a bit over 10 years in the industry. I'm very happy to be here. I've worked in the industry from the recruitment side and marketing side, especially for language. And for the past 2-3 years, I've been doing technologies. And now I'm the CEO of Panda Portal, which is a training ecosystem for the industry.
Awesome. Thanks for that. We're going to hop right into it because we have a lot to cover in a short time. First of all, some housekeeping. As we go through, we are going to leave some time at the end of this session for Q&A, but I'll be trying to monitor the chat window as we go through. And if I see questions pop up as our panelists are speaking, I'll try and weave that directly into the talk as we go. So feel free to please type in your questions in the chat bar, and we'll answer as many of those as possible. Whenever you do these sessions, the webinars, there's an interesting format because the kind of live face-to-face interaction is gone. So please do get involved. Please do ask questions. Please do make comments. And I'll look forward to seeing those there. I'd like to start any session that I'm part of or moderating with kind of laying out what I hope to achieve and what our plan is through this webinar. And as we we did a trial run on this the other day and kind of laid out some of the points that we wanted to leave you with today. And so I'll talk to those a bit at the beginning before we get into the questions to the panelists. I think, speaking to people at these conferences and international educators, recruiters around the world, it's like, as we're like 6, 7, 8 months into this pandemic and when it first started in March, everyone was like, yeah, we have this, they're banging pots and pans outside and they're, super positive, we're going to beat this. And a lot of people are feeling beaten down. And I know the language travel sector, more than any other sector in international education, has really taken a hit. And it's been so hard for us to be able to do our jobs. So I think one takeaway that I want to leave with is the warm and fuzzy feeling that we're in this together and we're working this together. And that's why we're here to share knowledge and to help each other through this. So that'll be the first takeaway, kind of the warm and fuzzy piece. 2, we want to look at the big picture and see, how people have been doing their jobs in an effective way, and what are some strategies that we can share with the group that maybe we haven't thought about or you guys are thinking about but haven't really fully taken that on to see this is how other people are doing things that are working and making their jobs effective during this time. The second thing is we really want to talk in this webinar and this presentation about relationship building, and everything that we do is around relationships in this industry, whether it's relationships with our agent partners, whether it's relationships with students. It's very much a relationship-driven industry, and being forced into a digital, virtual world has made that more difficult. So we're going to really look specifically on the relationship building aspect and how that can be accomplished through digital marketing. And then the last thing that we hope to leave you with is some specific things, some real things that, maybe Marcella or Jimmy or Robin will share of how they've seen agents working effectively with different platforms, or Marcella, how she's seen schools doing things that have worked for her agency, to leave you with some kind of practical, pragmatic tips. So we'll shift into the first question for the panelists, and I'll have all three of you weigh in on this one. And I kind of alluded to it in the introduction, but this change has been crazy. We were joking around the other day in our talk just with the group that people are living a vampire lifestyle now, that they're up all night trying to recruit students in virtual fairs, and then they have their family life during the day, and they, their normal work hours during the day. And this absolute change has been something that, at first we thought it was just a stopgap measure, but now we're really into this type of thing, and lessons are being learned. People are no longer being reactionary, but being much more strategic. So starting at that really big picture, and Robin, maybe if you can kick us off on this, the journey of moving in the language sector from completely a face-to-face mostly environment of how we were recruiting and working with partners and students, to the shift of the Zoom culture, virtual, Instagram Live, all of those type of things. What are some kind of big picture takeaways that you found so far with yourself, and also in your role in Yelp?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Well, I think the vampire image is absolutely appropriate. I mean, my day started at 4:30 this morning, and we'll be going to this conference till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So, it does mean a change in terms of no longer thinking about your normal day. But, I think that also really places the conversation in terms of what partners are willing to do for each other, right? And I think that has been a really interesting aspect, that having the previous in-person relationships that we've nurtured in great events like ISEF and YELC and others have allowed us to have sort of a springboard for the virtual platform. And so, the more events that you've done face to face, and the deeper those connections are, makes it easier for that transition to a virtual world. But I think that agents and schools are looking for more creative ways of how we can adapt, and looking at going beyond the normal day-to-day routine as to how we can help each other, and whether that's participating in Instagram Live events together, or even just joining a counseling session, especially for more complicated, longer-term academic programs. It's really important that the school and the agent are interacting with the families to help build that assurance, because there's a lot of angst, there are a lot of questions out there, and I think that with schools willing to participate in those conversations with the families, and the family being able to see that the agent is able to bring the school in, that there's that commitment to making sure that their children have a fantastic experience, a learning experience that's meaningful. I think that's really important.
Thanks for that, Robin. And I guess, Marcella, when we look at that same question from the agent perspective, when I reflect on Robin's answer there, I see, while things have changed, a lot of things haven't changed, and if those relationships are supporting each other as partners. I often work in the higher ed space, where the higher ed universities in North America sometimes say, agencies are a necessary evil that we have to work on. And how different that is in the language sector, where we truly understand that this is a partnership of we're working together. So that was the thing that stuck out from Robin's comment. It's really, we're doing things differently, but at the same time, those core values are the same. I'm wondering what comments you have around there of how this is all kind of played out over the last kind of 10 months or 8 months, what it might be.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think that it was really impressive what many schools did. I think most of our partners did, that they changed overnight from face-to-face classes to online teaching. And it was really nice to see that we could count and rely on them, with our students. Because, I mean, from the agent perspective, when the pandemic hit, we had the students that were abroad that wanted to come back. We had the students that were abroad that wanted to, stay abroad. And we had students that were about to leave and couldn't do so because of, travel bans, flights, and everything. So it was, I think that in the beginning, like in March, it was quite crazy from our perspective. And then I think that after a week or so, we also adapted. And I think that we at IE were quite clever in this sense. We actually were able to change from face-to-face counseling to Zoom counseling and Instagram. We used all the digital tools that we could, and we were actually successful in actually, booking students even during that time, not only to support the students that wanted to come back, but also to help students that wanted to book their programs, of course, for 2021 or 2022. And that's another area. And I think that what we learned from this time was that we need to work together, agents and schools, because we really depend on each other to have this industry, going on forever.
Thanks, Marcela. I guess it's interesting, Jimmy, probably from your perspective as a tech company who is focused on helping people kind of evolve and adapt new technology to begin with, and then this pandemic backset has forced everyone into this really, really quick change. And I heard someone say the other day that institutions did 3 years of innovation in 3 weeks because they were absolutely forced to, and how many teachers or professors around the world have said, oh, I can't do this online, and then, hey, they're online right now. Yeah. So from your perspective of looking to someone who drives change management and looks at that, what have you seen this past kind of pandemic time reflected in both agencies and education partners?
No, absolutely. I always say that the international education industry is kind of like 10 years behind the travel industry in terms of how the information is concentrated, how you can access the information, and how things are automated. And I knew, actually, many people think I started Panda Portal after the pandemic, but we actually started before. And I was foreseeing that it was going to take a lot in terms of taking the adoption and so on. But what happened is that once the pandemic hit, everyone went online. It's a matter of survival. It's not if I want to adopt it, if I want to understand, if I want to take the time. No, it was a matter of survival. Schools that were against doing anything online, they went online overnight. So that's been very, very interesting. And I think at the end of the day, in terms of just moving to technology and helping to bring the industry up, I think technology-wise, that was actually a good thing that everyone was able to kind of like jump into it. Of course, there is challenges. The adoption keeps being a big challenge. The tools have been there for years. It's not a matter of the technology that was available. It was a matter of like the industry kind of like adopting that technology. And there is still a long way to go. Of course, the most important part, which was taking the classes online, that was of course the most important, the first thing they did. But there is still so much work to do to make it more efficient. I mean, we know the frontiers are going to start opening, but traveling and going back to a normal, I don't think there's going to be the same normal. I think we're going to a new normal that, in the base case scenario, is going to have a blend of what it used to be and a new normal, basically. So yeah, that's been very interesting, and absolutely, it accelerated that growth. Some people say 2 years, some people say more. In terms of how it grew in terms of technology. So now there's new challenges. I'd say that when everyone goes online, if you used to see a few things online, now everyone is there, right? So also the information is overcrowded. And now, before, you may have different people going to certain countries, and if you had a bigger team, maybe you can communicate with agents more because you were able to go to their offices. But because now everything is online, you can just connect with everyone at the same time. So I don't know, Marcela, but I get this from a lot of agents, and now they're getting so much information from everyone just because it's accessible. Before, if I can travel to certain country, like I never been to Uruguay just because it was not a big enough market for me to go there. But now I can just, the same way I'm communicating with agents in Mexico and Colombia, now I can communicate with agents in Uruguay. So now I feel that kind of one of the challenges that is out there, it has to do with just the overload of information, how to manage it for the agency side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Marcela, did you want to jump in on that, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that it's totally true, and it's really funny how people were so afraid of using technology, and when the pandemic hit, they all went online, and it became acceptable, not to have a face-to-face interaction with the student anymore, but then using a Zoom, for example, or with parents. Some parents would say, no, I just want to book if I go to an agency and see and speak to the counselor in person. And with everything that happened, everything is online, and they are okay with that. It's quite funny, the change that happened in the industry.
Yeah, interesting. I think now I'll drill down one level, and when we look at what differentiates our products. So in language schools, we have language schools in Vancouver, Toronto, London, all around the world. And there are differentiators. We say in Vancouver, beautiful, safe city. London it's London, and New York is New York, and you have those type of things. So we find those value propositions. But it's, to be honest with ourselves, no one has a product really that's just revolutionary, that no one can even say that they have anything that compares to it. So when we're selling education products, a lot of those are similarities, and what we do to differentiate ourselves as schools with agents, with students, is that relationship building. I've had the pleasure of traveling with Robin all over the world. We've done fairs through Russia, we've been in Asia, we've been all over the place in the Middle East, and I see him working a room and working with his agent partners. It's smiles, it's energy, it's I got you, here's my WhatsApp number, all of those type of things, making relationships. This is really reaffirmed ICEF as the agent barometer every year, and I think it's just such a fantastic piece of market intelligence. They ask a ton of questions. Over 1,000 agents sending 250,000 students abroad per year. And one of the questions that they ask, and the answer is almost the same every year, is that, what are the biggest concerns that students and parents have before choosing a destination? And, this is across different sectors, K-12, language, post-secondary, but quality of education doesn't come into that. They worry about affordability, they worry about safety, they worry about accommodation, and they worry about their language ability. Those are the 4 biggest factors that impact international students' decision-making in choosing a student. And when you can sit with an agent, and when you can sit with a student and parent and look them in the eyes and say, I'm going to take care of you, that's a very powerful thing to convincing them to come to your school. That's all kind of disappeared in this virtual landscape. So I want to kind of ask the panel about, how do we effectively brand our institutions? How do we effectively build these relationships? And I know support have already come down, but maybe I want some other kind of more specific ways that we can really build those relationships. And I'm sure, Marcela, at your agency, as Jimmy just alluded to, you're getting no shortage of training requests. I'm sure there's a lot of schools that want to do training with IE. But how do you see schools and recruiters and marketers effectively in a digital platform make a strong relationship with either yourself, your counselor, or a family that's in your office?
Well, tough one, Mike. I think that we are. It's usually easier to have this kind of connection and not lose this kind of what makes you different feeling when we've visited the school before. At IE, what we did, and it was well before the pandemic, we visited most of our partners, and we have VR videos on virtual reality videos, where we actually, when counseling the student, they could actually be in the school, so they could actually see the school 360. And that actually helped sell a lot. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, this was not easy to use, because we have all this, dedicated part of our agency set up for this, with the goggles, with the specific chair and everything. So what we actually started doing was actually inviting the schools, and especially the marketers, schools that have Portuguese-speaking people, to help us with Instagram Lives, with counseling with specific parents that were not really sure about what that option. I think that was basically what actually worked. As far as trainings, what happens is that we also connected with the key partners and organized the specific trainings for our network. So we did like roundtables where we had the school answering questions from our counselors. And that actually worked pretty well. I'm not sure I answered
you said that was,
everything.
No, you said that was a difficult. No, you said that was a difficult question, but you knocked that one out of the park.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good answer. I'm going to come back to a couple of those points after we let other people weigh in on this. Jimmy, I don't mean to keep asking you last, but I think it's a nice closing to hear from the tech perspective to close it off. So, Robin, I'll do that same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing for me, somebody who's always been interested in technology and used to sort of fantasize about, could we access markets where visas perhaps were impossible to get? Could we access those markets through a digital platform? I think that the fascinating thing for me is the sense of value, right? That really what's valued by the students is that in-person experience. And I see that with my 20-year-old son who's done 2 years of university in person. He's in his third year now, and it's just not the same. And he tells me, look, the transference of information, that's one piece, but that's not the whole piece. And I think what's interesting is that we're now using digital platforms to enhance or reinforce the value of the in-person experience. So it is a hybrid model. We're using a digital platform to showcase, as Marcela was saying, the kind of experience that we can deliver in person. And so I guess that for me is the real challenge. How do we do that going forward in an ever more reassuring way? Because I think that especially schools like the schools in the International Association of Language Centers, you're going to see more of the school principals and school operators heavily engaged with the student experience, and they're going to need technology to cover some of those automated pieces that they're just not going to have time for.
I agree 100%. Jimmy, to close this off, again, I think, when I look at the product that you provide, training that basically agents can access, anytime that they want, a lot of flexibility, kind of providing chaos or order to the chaoses of all the information that you spoke about. In terms of that relationship building, training, instruction, what are your views on how institutions can do that more effectively with their agent partners?
Yeah, I think the challenge right now, and it's going to keep increasing, is to get the attention of the agents. Maybe Marcela is able to organize everyone at one specific moment, but most agencies I talk to, it's hard for them to stop everything they're doing just to join one training, right? They may say, you know what, I can dedicate these 2 different people, but then let's talk another day. So for the school, that means another training only for that agency. So what they try to do is okay, let me try to grab as many agencies as I can. So they do webinars, but then that's the problem right now. That's what most people are trying to do. Let me try to grab as many people as possible. And then what agencies get is that all these workshops that are really important. And if you think about it, like even if you're not an agency, but you're in the industry, you're probably getting more invitations to workshops that you can actually attend. And you want to attend because these are great workshops and, great sessions, but you probably just can't just join all of them. So agencies have exactly the same invitations plus the invitations to get the training from the school. So every time it's harder for them to join this kind of training, but they need to get the training also because this is a year that everyone changed. The schools changed their programs. Now they have new programs online. Now they have new, probably change their destinations. They need to be informing all the time regarding what's going on in the next few months. So there's a high need to train the agents because even if you've been working with this school for 20 years, now I have a completely different school just because of COVID. So that's when we created this. And again, it was pre-COVID, but the product fits so well to what's happening right now. Is because you can access the training on demand, which means if you have an agency, you have 15 people in the agency. If they are, they don't have any meeting on a Friday 10 a.m., that's the moment where you can take the training, and the manager of the agency can check who's taking the training and whether they finish it or not. Same as the school. So the school also can see, if their agents are actually getting trained. So that's really useful, I think, for both the agents and the school. And also something that is very interesting is that agencies also, they say, now people are working from home and they're actually working. It's working. Marcela was talking about how for parents was so important to see their face and to see the office, so I can trust, they giving you $10,000 to send my kid to abroad. But now they're trusting Zoom. So then you say, if my people in Sao Paulo can work from home, why I can't hire someone in Rio? Why I can't hire someone from different cities working from home as well? If I have my CRM, if I have my know-how, if I have my relationships, now that one of the challenges is how can I get that person trained without spending one-on-one of my time, which is important time, not knowing if this person is going to work out. So, all add up to everything that's happening. So, and just to go back, and I don't want to extend too much, but it has to do with the relationship building. For schools, and I keep saying this to schools that say, hey, but that's what I do, my whole day I'm doing one-on-one trainings. I say, well, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't be spending your time on repeating the same presentation. You should be talking to your agents and helping them close sales. You should be joining their Instagram live. You should be talking to the parents of the students that are trying to close. You should be spending your time in asking them how they're doing today. How can you help them? Just train those relationships, because you cannot go to the office and invite them for a coffee or for a beer. Now you need to try to just say, hey, I'm here. I'm still here. How can I help you? Instead of just, dedicating your time into the origin, because it's important to train, but it's not as important as the relationships.
It's just, I think at this point we've got some really good discussion going on. I got a couple of things to add. I just wonder if Marcela and Robin, do you want to jump in with anything else on this topic before I go on a rant?
Go ahead.
I just think that, it's interesting, as Jimmy was talking there, I was thinking, on the one side, I think schools and agents are looking for automation. What are the tools that we can build into our workflow to help streamline things? But I think on the other side, the consumers, the students, especially the millennial generation, they're resisting that automation. They want more individual attention. And I think that's an interesting balance, right, for our organizations, is how do we create automation in our workflow and then have more time for the individual experience?
I'm going to weigh in on 2 points here. I have comments. I think this has been a really interesting part of the conversation. First of all, I see that we haven't had any questions yet, and I know even people on a virtual format are scared to ask questions. I'm going to up the ante a little bit. I'm based in Vancouver, but I travel around the world a lot. The first person to ask a question in the chat will get a very fine glass of wine bought by me wherever we're in the same city in the world after this pandemic. So I'm going to bribe you a little for questions. So hopefully that sparks the question debate. But I want to go back and first, I'm going to comment on one of Jimmy's comments, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about something that Marcela and Robin were discussing. First of all, to Jimmy's comment about, you should be the one asking the people, how are you, and having that conversation. And I've, doing a lot of work in the consultancy world where we really look at a change management process. How do you reduce high volume, low value activities and make sure the activities that you are doing are high value, low volume? And it's a really important change management philosophy. And I think when we're looking at how technology can effectively use us, as Robin rightly said, millennials, Gen Z, they're expecting personalized service, but they're also expecting a really quick turnaround. So if you're spending most of the day asking the same question, like how much is your application fee, that's a high volume, low value activity. You need to find a way to automate that. I think that's what makes Jimmy's business clever, is he's found a way to provide flexibility of quality training, but make you not have to do that same training 10 million times. You can do it once, really professionally, video it, and people can access it anytime. And I think that's very, very important. Going back to Marcella's point when she answered the question, she spoke about virtual reality. I also want to comment on there. I saw a presentation recently at a conference that online campus tours, like 360 Google tours or VR tours, traffic have increased over 300% during the pandemic. So people are looking for that experience. And, saying, yeah, but the VR product's too expensive, can't do it. I spoke recently to a recruiter and said one of the most powerful things that they were doing in the marketing is using FaceTime walking tours of the school. So getting this student on there and saying, hey, come on, join us. We'll walk around the school. It's empty right now, as you know, but we'll see. So there's out the window. There's the view of Vancouver. Here's your counselor. Hi, Yumi, how are you? Waving to those people and showing that this school is a physical place, that there's personal relationships and people that are going to support you while you're there. So I think some of these simple online things of again, doing a FaceTime with a student and a family and an agent counselor, walking them through that school. So when I look at what companies beyond the education, beyond language travel have done, is that they've really tried in their marketing, the big companies, the big players, hotel industry, car industry, these type of things, is how can they provide experience and how can they provide value add to personal customers? So how can you still convey that experience? How can you still do that? And Instagram Lives come up and these other things, creating videos has come up. To move to kind of the final question that we're going to address and going down one more step into more granular, and asking people to maybe share their special sauce a little bit about what they've done effectively. I mentioned about, the FaceTime tours through campuses. Wonder specifically, have we seen schools or agencies or even companies outside of the sector who have done things that are clever and are able to engage people digitally that we think that would be a good lesson to share? And I'm going to reverse the order, and Jimmy, I'll let you kick that question off if you can.
Yeah, I've seen all. I talk to the schools every day and with agents. So there is a broad kind of range of what people are doing with technology. But I believe it's nothing to do with the technology per se, because now with software as a service, it's easy to have anything. And you said, FaceTime or just WhatsApp videos on Instagram. That's really easy to use. So it's nothing to do sometimes with the technology. You have to do with the adoption of the technology. So I think people get afraid of technology that's too expensive or is too complicated. And yes, there are complicated tools that you maybe need to hire a full team of people to manage. But they're very simple tools. You just need to work on the processes. So I think people need to work more into project managers that help you apply change versus thinking about how complicated technology and thinking on IT. So I think that's the biggest change, because it's something as simple as adding a chat tool into your website. Let's say if you go there but no one replies that chat because you didn't create the process that will create a good user experience, then you are going to get an angry student just because they're asking questions and chatting with no one, right? So I think it has to do more with that the technology per se. And I think when the pandemic started, I saw two kind of ways that both agents and school were. Some, they say, let me just hold back, let me see what the industry do, and whatever I see is working for some schools, I'm gonna go do that. And they were the ones that went out there trying 10 different things, and they kind of they went into Instagram really aggressively, they were really into WhatsApp really aggressively, they did whatever there was on their hands and the technology was available. And I just as a learning experience that I saw, while experiencing all that, is that should be the way. I mean, you don't need to be great at all channels. You don't need to get in a VR if VR is too complicated for you and the size of your team. If WhatsApp is good, then do it, but just integrate into a process that you can actually do it and you can repeat it and I can create a process inside your team. I think that's more important than the technology per se. So yeah, that's kind of the learning I've seen from different schools.
Marcella, do you want to maybe weigh in on that, some specific techniques or specific processes that have worked over the past months?
Sure. What we did and was actually very effective was that we started counseling the students, because we already had a pipeline. So we already had students interested in traveling. So when we moved from the office to teleworking, what we did was that we started connecting those people through Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, and Instagram. And what proved very effective was that we usually had several students that wanted to go to the same destination. We put them all together in a Zoom call, and we would answer their questions, and sometimes with the help of the school, other times only with our counselors. And we actually had, I can't say lots of bookings, but considering the situation, I think we got actually a good number of bookings, out of these simple, things. And I think that was what actually helped us. We didn't stop selling. I think that we did maybe in March, but not from the following months. And actually trying to keep the flame of and the hope of actually being able to travel, which is quite funny, because although now we have students that are willing and are actually booking online programs, although they actually want to travel. So what they are doing is that they are booking online programs and studying online, aiming at traveling at a later date. So I think that planning, and that hope that, things will be back to normal, that they will be able to go abroad and experience Vancouver as it is during summertime, not in winter. I was there in January. I almost froze. So I think that's the key, not really, give up.
Got it. And I know there's a couple. Oh, sorry, finish your thought, Marcella?
No. Go ahead.
We do have a couple questions, and I know Michael Quinn came in for that free glass of wine, and I saw him typing right away, so I'll come to you in a second, Michael, and then to Chris. But I'll let you finish off this thread, Robin.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some things that Jimmy said there earlier as well. That, I think that we do have to look at the hospitality industry, the tourism industry, and sort of learn from them. Travel agents have been using systems like Galileo, Amadeus, Sabre for years. And still, in the language travel business, we're emailing PDFs with our prices. And so for me, it's been about, adoption. I think that's a key word that Jimmy used. How do we adopt the technology that's already there, as Marcella pointed out, with WhatsApp and FaceTime on the sales process, but then individualize or personalize the actual product. And so I've been looking at the autonomous learner model and some work that's been done in the Canadian secondary school experience, and looking at individual education plans and how to take that concept, that structure, and build individual education plans for all of our students who now are coming with even more specific goals, going on into colleges or universities. And what is the step? I think that we're seeing an end to sort of a mass product in terms of education. That model is not going to work anymore. It's much more about personalizing and how do we help each individual student reach their goal. And I think vehicles like individual education plans are very effective tools for that.
Great point.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just before you say something, let me just say that Jimmy's ideas and proposal is really interesting from the agent perspective, because it's much easier when we can train our staff at their own time and pace than actually putting them all together at the same time. So I think that what he said really matches this time perfectly.
Yeah,
that's music to my ears.
Yeah. Before we go, I'm going to add a couple things, that I've seen in terms of specific techniques that I've seen schools using to leverage digital to create experience to engage students. And, one of the things, a project I was working with was an art school recently, and we did a couple marketing initiatives that worked really, really well. One, we asked students to create TikTok videos or video content of what their their study at home environment was like. How do you study during quarantine? And we had these students making really cool videos of what they were doing at home, how they were set up, their pets were in there. And in one case, we had a TikTok video made by a young woman, and it was viewed 20,000 times in 48 hours. And that was purely student-generated content. So there was absolutely no cost to us. It was straight from them. So the thing that I would say is that also during these times, we know, like I'm sitting in Vancouver right now, we're in a semi-lockdown. We're all getting cabin fever. We're all, bored. We're not hanging out with our friends. Students in many of the countries we're recruiting from are the same thing. They're not having the normal life that they were having. And getting them involved, asking for their opinion, asking for them to contribute, asking them for them to share their ideas, and leveraging the power of our prospective audience. And of course, we ask them to share it through a hashtag, or we do a little competition for a scholarship giveaway on all of these type of things. So I think one is using the power of our audience and our client base to go out and get them to contribute their thoughts and give tips to other students on how they can study at home, how they're surviving quarantine. And there was a lot of really good stuff that was happening through March, April, and May. And I think people got a little away from it, but some companies are still doing that really well. I see language schools doing yoga classes, free yoga classes, cooking classes online, and they're getting 50, 80, 100 people coming in and joining a yoga class or joining a cooking class. And the argument that I would make is that was best practice before COVID. It's best practice during COVID, and after COVID, that's also going to be best practice. There's nothing wrong with portraying your brand as fun, as your brand is engaging and thinking of your students. So I think there's some lessons to take away there. I'm going to move to the questions and it's scrolled down and I can't see them. Can we see Michael's question there? Anyone able to? I got it. So Michael asked a question, going forward, do you think online training, is it the way to go? Before pandemic, schools would travel to countries maybe 2 or 3 times a year, at least for their sales trips, but maybe now that will be online and maybe less going abroad. Now, curiosity, just what your opinion would be if we snap our magic fingers and COVID's gone tomorrow, could you imagine? And everything went back to normal. Will we be traveling as much as we were? Robin, I'd be interested to hear your perspective. And then just to say, what will be 2 years down the road when we come out of this? What do you think will stick from the changes that we've made over this year? And what will go back to being normal? And anyone who wants to jump on that.
I mean, I think, again, it's interesting because the technology might allow us not to travel, but I can tell you, our CEO Justin Quinn will be racing down the highway as soon as there's any kind of opportunity to get on a plane again, and he'll be going as far as possible to have that experience. And I think it's about for new relationships, for building new business and building new business opportunities, that face-to-face is going to be critical. And I think that we're only going to be able to live the vampire life for so long. I think it is going to be important to have that. But I do agree that we do need to utilize the tools better. And I noticed Felipe is asking, are schools willing to apply their budgets for that? And I think that's, again, those are relationships that are built on trust and loyalty. And I think that schools and agents are going to be selecting their relationships perhaps more carefully based on the experiences that they've had in an in-person platform. And I think that they'll be coming together to find solutions on how to do the marketing post-pandemic.
I have something to add in there, if you don't mind, Mike. Travel is going to be more limited, right? Some schools won't even want their staff to travel just because of all the probably liabilities and so on. So that face-to-face time with the agents is necessary. This is a relationship business, basically. You've seen in some schools, someone work for this school, the next day they work for another school, and they get the agents like this just because they already have that credibility and relationship with the agents. So what you don't want, and what I am forecasting is going to happen, you don't want to take that opportunity that you're going to travel, and it won't be 3 times, maybe only 1 time. You don't want to go to the agency and push a 20-minute training after the next school is going, just because the student fair was happening in that city. That's what you don't want. I mean, if you're going there and you're building relationships, you want to spend those 20 minutes just having love with them and saying, hey, I'm here, I came back to here, I'm so happy to see you, let me hug you, and we are here, right? You don't want to just push to whoever is the staff right now, and we know the turnover in some countries, so you want to actually talk to the people that you've known for many years and the new people as well, but just say, hey, I'm here, and spend that as a time of quality, not time of pushing, just getting a 20-minute idea of what my school is all about. So that's when I said, I'm just going back to your point of high value, high volume, low value, those things. I mean, I would even visit the agents that took the time to take my training. I would prioritize those rather than just trying to the agency to get me to put a presentation just when I have the next school just waiting at the door to also talk to them. So yeah, that's my point on just to add into what Rowan was saying.
Great points and great discussion. I think we're got only a few minutes left in the session. I believe we're supposed to end at 10:02. So I know there's a few more questions specifically around the training piece. I'd really encourage people to contact Jimmy directly on what he's doing with Panda Portal and his online training piece there. I really appreciate the panel's points today. I think it was a really engaging conversation, and love it that professionals share their, like as I said, the secret sauce sometimes, because I really believe that the rising tide floats all boats, and we're definitely in this together. I ended a webinar the other day. I'm going to say the same thing to end today, as right now, as we get through, and the battle of attrition has been a long one, guys. And we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. We wasn't sure if it was a train coming through or if it was hope coming through, Robin, to steal your little analogy that you use. But I definitely think that we're getting through this. The wonderful part of being an international educator, and especially in the recruitment, is all the wonderful time that we get to spend together in different parts of the world, and the connections we made with students, and that part is gone, and it's just been the work and the grind. But attending these conferences and having these talks with people, it just reminds me personally of what an awesome kick-ass sector that we're in, and what awesome professionals that we work with. And don't worry, we'll be back in the Marlena bar in Berlin before too long, as sharing a cocktail, or a Buddha bar in Dubai, like we used to drink in, Robin. So thank you everyone so much. Our profiles are in the conference. Feel free to connect. I would love to continue the conversation personally with any one of you. Give me an ad on LinkedIn, or find me or shoot me an email. But thanks so much, everyone. I'll give a final quick word to each one of you, and then we'll sign off. Anything from the panel to end it off?
No, I think that what you said, Mike, is absolutely bang on. That these opportunities to share experiences are critical, and we have to continue to seek out opportunities. The International Association of Language Centers is going to have another virtual workshop at the end of the month, and we're looking forward to working with our approved agencies to find ways of working together and maintaining that connection, so that again we can celebrate that when we start to have in-person experiences again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your.
Something else, Mike, just to end, just with one idea, and sorry about that. I just regarding some of the comments at the end, is that everything is about adoption. I mean, if there's one thing that I would like to live with, is adoption. The technology is there, and it's been there for years. I mean, what we created an ecosystem, so everything happens in one place. So that's convenience. But the LMS have been there. Actually, some agents had some LMS. So it's about adoption, and I know some schools are joining and they don't upload their training just because, again, it's changing processes and it's taking them time. So we're pushing them, and of course, the more agents are joining, the more the schools are saying, "Oh, I should be there." So both agents and schools. I mean, if you want to really get into this wave of technology, you need to just work on the adoption. The technology is there. You don't need to build anything new right now, I believe. It's about adoption. It's working to how you can project manage your company so that actually you take advantage of the technology that is right there, available for everyone. That's it.
Thank you. Off to you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for the panel's participation in this. Thanks for all the audience comments and questions. It felt, even though there was a webinar, that it was pretty engaging with our audience. So have a great rest of your day wherever you might be in the world, and look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.